Did you know that without changing the location of a single wall, you can make a room appear larger, smaller, taller, shorter, and even wider? We will start with an all-white room and slowly paint more and more walls in a darker color to see how that changes our perception of the room. For each technique, I'm going to give you lots of examples so you are able to understand how and when it is appropriate to use each of them, empowering you to make choices that elevate both your style and your comfort. Alright, let's start with the first technique, which is all white walls. White walls are highly reflective, bouncing light around the room more effectively than darker colors. This increased light distribution can make spaces appear brighter and more open. White walls also create a sense of uninterrupted space, making the boundaries between walls, ceiling, and floors less defined. This lack of visual interruption promotes a feeling of expansiveness. Without contrasting colors to provide visual markers, our ability to perceive distance is impaired, making the space appear larger. White is also associated with purity, cleanliness, and simplicity. These associations can also influence our perception of space, making it feel not just larger, but also more serene and less cluttered. When should you paint all the walls in a white color? The best time is, of course, when you want to maximize light. This can be the case for all rooms, but some rooms are more desperate for this intervention than others. Here are some examples. Small rooms, because they also tend to be darker. Picking white or a very light color scheme would make the space feel a lot bigger than it actually is. Rooms facing north, if you're in the northern hemisphere, or south, if you're in the southern hemisphere, can also be great candidates for this intervention. These rooms never get direct sunlight, so you want to maximize the light you do get by choosing white as a wall color. Same goes for people living in Nordic countries. This is why minimalism and light pastels are an ever-present trend there. Because if you do not get enough light for half of the year, then you want to do everything possible to maximize the amount of light you do get. Any room that doesn't seem to get enough natural light should have a white or a light color scheme, but of course this works well with bigger rooms too. Number 2, painting a ceiling in a dark color. When interior spaces feature white walls or lighter shades of colored walls, paired with a darker ceiling, the general perception is that the room feels lower and more intimate. This is because dark colors absorb light, reducing the visual lift that lighter colors provide. The contrast between light walls and a dark ceiling accentuates its presence, making it a more dominant element in the visual field. This approach is particularly effective in homes with tall ceilings, where we desire a feeling of coziness. And by tall, I mean it is at least 3 meters tall, or roughly 10 feet. If your ceilings are below that, then this technique is not going to work for you, because it will look like the ceiling is sitting on your head. But if you have a tall ceiling, then adding color and pattern to it is going to raise the eye and really help you take in the space. Also, painting or decorating the ceiling is kind of a statement of luxury. If you think about it, over the ages, only royals spent enormous amounts of money decorating their ceilings. Normal people might only consider the floors and the walls, and it's a kind of subliminal way to say, look how much time and space I have. That being said, in this day and age, giving your ceiling a coat of color is not that hard. It's just that not many people consider it. But if you do want to make a tall space a bit more cozy, then painting a ceiling would do the trick. It works well in living and dining spaces, but also in corridors, workspaces, and bathrooms. Pretty much any tall room can be turned into a cozy, sophisticated space. Number 3, having a dark accent wall. An accent wall helps the eye focus on the back element and creates the illusion of depth and scale. This effect can make the space feel longer, and it directs the attention to the far end of the room. This color scheme can be effectively used in several scenarios. In smaller rooms, using a dark color on one of the walls can add a sense of depth, making the room appear longer and directing focus to the end of the space. Highlighting accent walls. A dark wall can also serve as a dramatic backdrop for artwork, architectural features, or furniture, drawing attention and making these elements stand out. This could be interesting behind the bed, in the bedroom, or behind the couch, adding more visual weight to the living area. A good location for an accent wall is opposite to the entrance in the room. As you enter the room, you want to give the eye an anchor point that guides you through the space. Number 4. A dark color ceiling combined with a dark accent wall. A room where the ceiling and the wall directly in front are painted in a dark color, while the walls on the left and the right sides are white, makes the space feel wider. Lighter side walls can reflect more light and give the illusion of expanding sideways, making the room feel broader. This contrasts with the darker ceiling and front wall, which draw the eye upward and forward, making us focus straight ahead, potentially altering the room's perceived dimensions. Where might you use this technique? Well, this technique is often used in narrow and small rooms, making them feel wider and more open, while at the same time attracting the eye and keeping the circulation going. It's particularly effective in corridors and galleries, where enhancing width and creating a sense of openness are desired outcomes. Number 5. A white ceiling, white accent wall, dark side walls. On the opposite end, when the ceiling and the wall directly in front are painted white, while the walls on the left and the right side are dark, makes the space feel narrower. Dark colors on the side walls absorb more light and can visually push the walls inward, creating a visual effect where the side walls feel more pronounced and closer together. This is a technique used a lot for corridors and transition spaces, places where you want to encourage the movement forward as opposed to stagnation and lingering. It helps the eye focus forward and keep the body moving. It's not a technique you want to use in places where there's a lot of sitting involved. Number 6. Painting the lower thirds of walls. Painting the lower third of the walls in a darker color than the upper side can draw the eye towards the bottom side of the room and introduce a strong horizontal line, which can visually compress the room's height to some extent. A darker color also provides a visual grounding effect, creating a sense of stability and solidity. This can make the space feel more anchored and cohesive. Keeping the upper 2/3 of the walls and the ceiling white maximizes light reflection and maintains an airy feel in the upper part of the room. This can help counteract any feelings of constriction caused by the darker lower walls, maintaining a sense of openness at eye level and above. The technique of giving another treatment to the lower third of the walls has been around for a long time and has been used as a form of wall protection, particularly in areas with high traffic. High traffic areas are usually corridors or dining areas where the back of the chair might get slammed against the wall. And so as a form of protection, the lower thirds of the wall are covered in wooden panels, or so-called chair rails. So one way to use this technique is in combination with wall treatments protecting these high traffic zones from looking dingy after some time. But again, it works really well in spaces with tall ceilings. In a room with a lower ceiling, an intervention like that can make the space even shorter. Corridors that are very narrow and have a high ceiling can feel rather uncomfortable to be in. So by applying color to the lower third or half of the wall, especially a pastel color, can help lower the ceiling height visually, making the space feel less imposing, more proportionate, and more friendly looking. In residential spaces or areas intended for relaxation, slightly darker lower walls can enhance the feeling of coziness and comfort, making the space feel more intimate and welcoming. Which is why this technique is used today in many living spaces, no matter what the traffic. Number 7. All walls, including the ceiling, are in a dark color. Using dark colors on all the walls and the ceiling can make a space feel smaller, cozier, and more intimate because dark colors absorb more light than they reflect. They're also perceived as having more visual weight. This means that when they're used extensively, such as on all walls and the ceiling, they can make the boundaries of a room feel closer and more pronounced. Dark colors can evoke feelings of coziness and security in small doses, but may lead to the feelings of confinement when used extensively. This is why you'll see these techniques used in large rooms with high ceilings. While they give the feeling of coziness, there's still a lot of space around. Dark walls can make bedrooms darker and therefore support sleep at all hours of the day. They can be particularly useful for people who travel a lot or work in night shifts and need to sleep during the day. Guest bathrooms can be a little darker. Dark walls can add a sense of luxury and depth to a bathroom, especially when paired with the right lighting and fixtures. They can be used in dining or living rooms to create a romantic ambiance. Dark colors can create a dramatic and intimate dining atmosphere, enhancing the social and culinary experience. I've talked about this more extensively in my video How to Design a Cozy Nook, but essentially darker walls contribute to a lower level of light, making people feel calmer and more relaxed. If you guys enjoyed this video, I have a beginner's class called Color Psychology, the influence of color on emotion and behavior in architectural and interior design, where I go into more detail on how color influences our emotions, thinking and behavior, and I share some interesting stories and pieces of research that I believe you will find very interesting. You can find the class both on Skillshare and Udemy, and you can find the links in the description. All dark walls and a white ceiling is usually a softer version of the previous technique. You would have to be pretty confident to go for dark color walls, so keeping the ceiling white allows for some natural light to still bounce in, while still keeping a sense of coziness and intimacy. When a space features dark walls and a white ceiling, it can also make the ceiling appear higher and contribute to a sense of vertical spaciousness. The white ceiling acts as a visual lift in a room with dark walls, drawing the eye upward and creating the illusion of a higher ceiling. The best time to use this technique might be when you have a short room that you might desire to elongate, or in a situation where an intimate space is desired, but painting the ceiling in a dark color too would probably feel like it's too much. The space would probably feel too confined, and so you would take a step back and have a white ceiling instead. In conclusion, lighter colors tend to open up and extend the space. They disappear in the periphery, and we do not give them much attention. Darker colors, on the other hand, when paired in a strong contrast with lighter colors, create a sense of boundary and containment. We are much more aware of their presence, and they stand out to us. But color doesn't just shape our perception of space size, it can also shape our perception of how organized the space looks. And if you want to learn more about that, you might want to check out my video, Color, Space Simplification Without Decluttering.